Before we step into this tale, tell me where, in this wide old world, are you reading from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how far these Wild West stories wander, and how many firesides they find along the way. Snow fell in a slow, hushed drift when Caleb Morgan first glimpsed the two small figures by his fence. The light in the west had begun to die, the sky fading to the color of cold ash, and the wind carried the faint scent of pine from the distant ridge. He had been returning from the barn, his gloves stiff with the bite of winter, when the figures emerged from the pale curtain of falling snow, two little girls, hand in hand, their buckskin dresses worn and frost-darkened at the hems. The taller of the two, perhaps 8, had her hair in loose, uneven braids, black as a raven's wing, frayed at the ends. The smaller one, maybe 5, pressed herself against her sister's side, peeking out with wide, dark eyes that gleamed like wet stones. Caleb halted a dozen paces away, his breath forming clouds in the icy air. The taller girl spoke first, her voice small but steady, carrying only because the wind softened for a heartbeat. "Our mama is sick, sir. We'll clean your cabin to feed her." Her words were plain, yet there was a resolute steadiness to them that dug into him. The younger girl lifted her head just enough to nod, lips tinged blue from the cold. Caleb said nothing, but 1,000 questions raced through his mind. Where was their father? Why were they alone? Why had they come to him a solitary man with little more than a roof, a rifle, and a handful of cattle to offer? He cleared his throat. "Where's your home?" The elder girl cast her gaze toward the slope beyond the river, where the pines grew thick and dark. "Not far," she said. "An old cabin belonged to you?" he asked. She shook her head sharply. "Belonged to a trapper. He's gone. Mama can't walk far now." Caleb shifted his weight, feeling the snow crunch beneath his boots. He wasn't one to take in strays, nor to entangle himself in the troubles of others, especially those that carried Comanche blood. He could almost hear the whispers in town if he sheltered them. Narrowed eyes murmured warnings about carrying burdens that weren't his own. "You got family?" he asked. The younger girl clung tighter to her sister's arm. The elder shook her head. No. He should have sent them on their way. Caleb told himself that twice, trying to believe it. But the younger girl coughed into her sleeve, a soft, raw sound that lingered in his ears even as he turned his gaze toward the ridge. He imagined their mother wrapped in a threadbare blanket, alone as cold crept through the gaps in the walls. "Show me," he said at last. The elder girl's shoulders relaxed just slightly. She led the way, holding her sister's hand, carving a narrow path through the deep snow toward the dark line of trees. The wind bit at Caleb's cheeks with each step, the sun finally sinking beneath the horizon, leaving the snow to glow faintly in the twilight. Every few steps, one of the girls glanced back, ensuring he hadn't disappeared. They arrived at a clearing where a trapper's shack sagged under the weight of snow. A thin wisp of smoke drifted from the crooked chimney, promising warmth, though it spoke of damp wood and embers struggling to live. The elder girl pushed open the door, and Caleb ducked inside. The cabin smelled of smoke, herbs, and the chill of winter seeping through the cracks. Near the far wall, bundled in a heap of blankets, lay a woman. She was young, younger than he'd expected, perhaps not more than 29. Her hair, long and black, spilled across the fabric in waves, tangled in places. Her face was flushed with fever, lips dry. The blanket around her was thin, patched in several places with hide. She stirred when the girls knelt beside her, their small hands fussing over her. Her eyes opened, dark, deep-set, and found Caleb standing in the shadows. She said something in Comanche, her voice little more than a whisper. He didn't know the words, but her tone carried a question. "I'm Caleb Morgan," he said quietly. "Your girls came to me." She tried to sit up, but effort brought a shiver through her frame. He stepped forward, pulling his coat from his shoulders and draping it over her. She stiffened at the movement, not from a cold, he thought, but from the instinct of someone who had learned to flinch before touch. "You've been sick long?" he asked. 3 days. Her English soft, halting. "You can't stay here," he told her. "The cold will finish what the sickness started." Her eyes darted to her daughters, then back to him. "No one will help." "They commuted me," he said. "So I will." He helped her to her feet, careful of her weight, feeling the heat of her fever through the coat. Outside, the snow had begun to fall harder, thick flakes catching in her hair. The girls followed close. As they made their way back to his cabin, their footprints, the only marks on their white stretch of ground. Inside his cabin, the air was warmer, scented faintly with coffee and wood smoke. He settled her in the chair nearest the hearth, the girls huddling on the rug in front of the fire. He brought bread and a pitcher of milk, setting them on the lottable. The girls ate quickly, but without greed, their mother watching, hands folded in her lap. "You should eat," he said to her. "Later, Shimon." They first. He noticed her hands work roughened, the knuckle shaped small scars across the backs. When he brushed a bit of snow from her hair, she flinched again, though not as sharply as before. A knock came at the door. Caleb opened it to find Jess Harlan, a neighbor from 2 miles south, high eyes flicking from Caleb to the woman by the fire. "You sure you want to be doing?" Jesse asked, his voice low, carrying an edge. "Town won't like it." Caleb didn't answer. He closed the door. That night, when the girls were asleep by the hearth, he set a plate of stew in front of the woman. She hesitated, then took a bite. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the spoon, but she finished the bowl. When she looked at them afterward, it was with an expression couldn't read, something between disbelief and gratitude. Days passed into weeks. The girls laughed more now, their voices soft but brighter. The woman, Anna, he learned, mended his torn shirts, her stitches neat and sure. He showed them how to tend the horses, and Nita, the elder girl, took to it with quiet pride. The trouble came one morning, sharp as a winter wind. 3 riders appeared at the edge of the yard. Comanche men, their eyes hard, their voices clipped when they spoke. They claimed the girls and their mother belonged to the tribe, that she had no right to stay here. Caleb stood on Thepach, his revolver resting easy at his hip. "They're staying," he said, his voice even. The men glanced at Onenatha, measuring him. Something in his stance, in the way he didn't blink, made them think better of pressing. They turned their horses and rode off, the sound of hoofbeats fading into vesna-laden distance. That night, Iona sat by the fire, her fingers tracing theorem of her tin cup. "You didn't have to," she said. "Didn't have to what?" "Stand for us." He shook his head. "You think Truth is, you and those girls saved 'em from living in silence." She looked at them for a long moment, the firelight catching in her eyes. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch this time. Instead, She leaned into his hand just enough for him to feel the warmth of her cheek. They girls curled under a quilt by the hearthrug, already asleep, their breathings low and even. Caleb rose, tucking the quilt around them, then turned back to nut. Snow pressed against the window in soft, relentless flurries. Inside, Thithia burned steady, and for the first time in years, the cabin felt like it belonged to more than just him. He held her gaze a moment longer, then said quietly, "Winter doesn't last forever. And to you listening to this from somewhere far away, maybe you know this truth already. Maybe you've lived it. Sometimes the family you keep isn't Theon you planned for. Sometimes the door you open in a moment of hesitation changes everything. Out here on Theplands, kindness is the only thing you can plant in the frozen ground and still see it bloom."